Good evening, everyone. I'm Laura Smits. I'm the co-president of the State League of Women Voters of Connecticut. I'm also a co-convener in Norwalk because a lot of us league people do more than one job, as most volunteers can attest to. Tonight, we're here with the Board of Education debate first, and then we will do the Board of Finance with a break of 10 minutes in between. Each candidate has 10 minutes cumulative time. What that means is they will answer and they have a total of 10 minutes for the whole thing. And depending on how many questions we get, we'll see how fast we can go through them. And a lot of great questions from the audience. I always preference questions from audience as opposed to league questions. We start to run out of questions. We can do the league questions, but frankly, they're not as interesting because they're more general. I would ask that everybody not applaud every single moment. Please hold it to the end. And if we are in a room that has a very sensitive mic, so any extraneous conversations will get picked up. We won't be able to hear the answers of the candidates. Cell phones, please silence them. And away we go. So the first question, Ms. O'Neill, goes to you. And everybody gets to answer the same question. We'll just go down the line. If there was one part of the education budget that could be decreased or cut, what would that be and why? Additionally, what part of the educational budget should never be touched and why?
Okay. So first of all, my name is Kristen O'Neill, and I just want to give a very quick thank you to the league for hosting us tonight. I'm going to start with the second part of the question first and say that what should never be touched in the education budget is teacher salaries. It's an obligation. Also, teachers should be compensated for what they do. We also should not be cutting any of our facilities projects or our programming. Our children need to be safe while they are in school, and they need to be receiving the highest curriculum possible. I would say, but to look at small things that do add up every day. First thing that comes to mind is if we're looking at services within the town, plowing the driveways or salting the sidewalks, mowing the lawns, that we could share those with the town. And then stationery. Can we, if we buy chairs in bulk over a longer period of time, could we do something like that? But obviously, we're not going to be able to save a ton of money that way, but we don't want to cut funding for programming or teacher salaries.
Okay, thank you. We have the time marked for that. Thank you. Okay, Mr. Asai. Question to you.
So for the first part of the question, I would say part of the education budget that can be decreased and why. I think two things that we can look at and that our administration has been doing a very good job at over time is in our special ed outplacements. I think our school district has done a good job on trying to keep as many students in district as possible versus being outplaced, which can be an extraneous cost on the district and the budget. So the more we can do to increase the effectiveness and efficiencies of our special ed program to do that are great. And then alternately, I think we can look at, and this board has talked for years about and continue to do, looking at some of the courses we offer and making sure that we are offering courses that our students need, but are also being attended and that closely. It's probably no surprise to anyone that's known me on the board. Part of the budget that we should not touch is maintenance. I believe that is very important. I think all too often it's the easiest place that people go to look for savings and look for reductions in times. And that is an area that I am adamant about trying to continue to fund and sustain.
Thank you. Ms. Jacobson.
Thank you, Jennifer Jacobson, Board of Education candidate. Thank you to the League for hosting us this evening. One area of the budget that can be cut is a very nuanced question in the sense that the Board of Education starts with zero-based budgeting every single year. And I would say that it depends on the year. Some years you might need less sections at an elementary school, so that might be an area that you may be able to reduce. In other years, it might be different. Other areas you may have pre-invested in some technology capital purchases, and therefore you can reduce in the subsequent year. So starting from a zero-based budgeting, year over year, we look at every single line item and can treat the line items in that way. One area that we have needed to look at for several years, in my opinion, is transportation, how we're using our buses. We do know, and it's been commented by many people on how our transportation is running efficiently or not. So that's an area that I hope that we will continue to look at, ensuring that all kids, of course, have a way to get to school, but also we do know that our buses are running on pretty low ridership. One area that we should not be touching, I would agree with Mr. Asa wholeheartedly and have been a proponent of that as well, as making sure that we're taking care of our facilities, not taking care of preventative maintenance. Ultimately will land up costing the community a lot more money in the long run. The other area that I would add to that is resources for our teachers and our students inside of their classrooms, the supplies, materials, curriculum supports that they need to deliver the curriculum and instruction in every classroom every day across the district.
Thank you. Ms. Bardenwerp.
Hi, so I'm Jackie Bardenwerper. Thank you all for having me tonight. I agree with a lot of what's been said already. If I were to look at the budget, like the things that I would not cut would be staff salaries, benefits. I mean, if you look at our budget, the majority of the costs are going to the teachers, and that is where they should be. And I would not want to touch any of the salaries for the teachers or any of the resources that they need to their classes. If I was going to look at things to cut, I would really want to look at the programming and make sure that all of the courses we have are being well attended and that we do have enrollment in them. And, take a closer look at programs where, we might not have very many students enrolled, just to, kind of look and see if maybe those are places where we can combine classes or, maybe make cost savings in other ways. And also with curriculum, we've made some big investments in curriculum. I was a big proponent of the new reading program we brought in, but I would like to look and make sure that, again, that when you make a large investment, that we're getting a return on it and that, that it's being used properly and that we're really, getting the most from that investment.
Thank you. Next question goes first to you, Mr. Asa. Did I get that right?
Got it.
Okay. Just want to make sure make sure everybody's within the same time frame. So that's good. We're on track. While preparing students academically to be ready and competitive in college is a great goal, how do our high schools also work with students who may not choose to attend college, but rather pursue a trade, work, mentorships in the arts, or other avenues to be successful?
So I think this is actually an excellent question, because I am a big supporter of, people going into the trades. I think it is something that we're lacking in society nationwide right now. And it no longer can be a stigma that somebody goes that path versus the traditional college. In our district, we do have, several programs and we have classes that do prepare for this path. And I think it is important to continue that. But I do believe that in the last year or two, maybe even back further, that it does seem like that is the direction. And the board has supported that. While high achievement in every level is always wanted, and we want to make sure that all of our students are doing well, we also want to foster an environment that makes people feel comfortable and does not put stringent guidelines on what they may, have to do. Not everybody wants to go down the same path. So I think continuing to do the programs that we have, but also offering more. And one of the things that I would love to see is an expansion at the middle school. Expansion of the middle school with electives in things that could spark an interest in students. The problem always comes down to the schedule and time, but it is something that I would like to explore, and it's something that's near and dear to me in the next 4 years on the board, that I would like to see an expansion at the middle school of trade-like electives.
Thank you. Ms. Jacobson.
Okay. One of the beauties of Fairfield, and I think this is pretty universally renowned, is that the benefit of having comprehensive high schools is that we do offer a plethora of options and pathways to all students. We have several options, as Mr. Ace has stated, in terms that are more career-oriented, such as culinary, auto, manufacturing, wood, fashion, going into teaching or healthcare. So bundling courses together, as the district and administration has recently done into career pathways, does provide an opportunity for students to look at the courses that are offered and bundle them in a way that would provide them for an alternative pathway into a more career-oriented post-secondary option. We also do offer the ASVAB for military entrance to students who want to be able to take that as well. So that is an option, and military recruiters are welcome on our campuses, just like college counselors are as well. So those opportunities exist at our high schools. I will say also with the middle schools, going into middle schools, parents and students engage in a process of student success plans where they start talking about some of these career pathways and options available to them as they progress into post-secondary coming out of elementary school. So there's a beginning talk conversation and layout. Doesn't mean you're stuck to that for the next, 7 years or so, but these are points along the way that we've built into our processes so that students are evaluating where they are and where they'd like to go after they leave us. And of course, support all the options that may inspire someone to pursue their passions, whether that be into a traditional 4-year, 2-year post-secondary college environment or into the workplace, we offer those, or the military, or into the job force. So yeah, lots of options. We're lucky to have them.
Thank you. Ms. Bardenwerper.
Thank you. So I think that one of the things Fairfield is just doing so incredibly well is in the middle school, your child goes in and they actually have to take all of these courses and they are exposed to things like, I think it's 7th or 8th grade, you start the wood shop, but you have the sewing classes, cooking classes that I didn't get to take as a kid because they had taken them out of the curriculum. And we expose our children to all of these starting in 6th grade. And I just have found that to be such a fantastic opportunity to really learn about different pathways. And the fact that we are bringing that to our children at such a young age is giving them the time to say, hey, I didn't realize it, but this sewing thing's really cool. I do want to explore fashion, or I do want to explore wood shop. And I think that starting at that young age and giving them those building blocks so they can go to high school, know the pathway they want to go to is just fantastic. And I just think was something we're doing a great job and we need to do more of. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. O'Neill.
Thank you. It's a great question. I used to be a high school English teacher, and at that time, our school's goal was to have every student be college ready upon their graduation. And while that's obviously a very worthy goal, I'm not sure it's exactly what every student wants at the end of the day. Not every student and not every person has their talents in academics. There are lots of people whose talents lie other places. And I think what Lauren Luker just said about the exposure in middle school is great. And I think we could do even better at engaging our community within our schools, and maybe at the middle school level and then on to the high school level. If we couldn't have classes, maybe engage the community to do things, a cosmetology club, a mechanic club, so that students could have even more exposure to these fields.
Thank you. Okay, next question goes to Ms. Jacobson first. What is your position and how do you plan to manage the trans issue specifically as it pertains to female-only spaces and their opportunities in athletics?
First part of the section.
Okay, what is your position and how do you plan to manage the trans issue specifically as it pertains to female-only spaces and their opportunities in athletics?
I'm not sure I understand the first part of that, but Connecticut state law is is quite clear. What I can say is, as previously serving on the policy committee, what happens on a regular basis is the Title IX policy that comes to us. That is guided by federal law. The Board of Education is a highly regulated environment, both in federal and state law, in addition to our own local policies. What I will say is we've had to update that, as Mr. Asa can attest to, several times. What I can say is, Connecticut law is quite clear. I know it's a controversial issue about sports and athletics in our state, but as a board, we are bound by state and federal law. Those are requirements of our state. So it changes on a regular basis, but at this point in place, I think that we need to have a responsibility to uphold the value and dignity of every single one of our students, to recognize who they are, and to ensure that we are providing safe learning and teaching environments for all of our students. So this is an ongoing conversation, but at the end of the day, right now, the position of the state of Connecticut, and therefore this board, is that we have to follow the law in terms of those processes and practices. So that's where I am. And I want to also say that as a mom of several female athletes, I strongly believe in the position that our girls need to have equal opportunities and in all areas, but in athletics especially. I've had several of my girls go on to college and play sports. And I don't like to usually talk about my own, but I've been a strong advocate for our facilities for girls and ensuring that they have equal opportunities, promotions in this district, and I will continue.
Thank you. Ms. Barnhart.
So I, second what Ms. Jacobson said. I will do my very best to uphold the law and, to make sure that our board is doing everything possible to ensure that we are, in compliance with Connecticut state law per our job. But again, I am also a mother of female athletes, and I believe that everybody should feel comfortable, safe, included. And, I will do my very best to make sure that we can make everybody, all of our students feel that way, regardless of, where they fall. So.
Thank you. Ms. O'Neill.
Thank you. I agree with what's been said before, and that it is our responsibility to uphold the law. However, I think this is a tricky question to answer without having a specific scenario as an example. So what I will say is that every student needs to be treated with compassion, needs to be treated with respect. And it would obviously be very dependent on the situation that we're talking about. So just speaking in generalities, I want to say that each student's privacy and well-being would be my concern.
Thank you. Mr. Asa.
I don't really think there's much more to say on this issue. I think it's been clearly stated. There are state statutes and guidelines that dictate what happens here. I do believe that all students and all people in general should be treated kindly and included. And female-only spaces is an evolving topic. And quite honestly, I do my best to listen, but I won't lie that sometimes I can't fully understand how someone in a position feels, because I can't put myself in their shoes. If I try to understand and try to empathize, and do my best to make the best decision that benefits all of our kids. So that's really all I can say on this, aside from upholding our board policies, which are derived from state law.
Okay, thank you. Next question goes first to Ms. Bardenwerper. Okay. What can be done to provide equality in student activities? There seems to be big funding for sports in this town, and the allowance for these booster parent organizations to spend with no financial limitations, and yet there is little to no spending for other organizations or the arts. How do we make sure that all our students' interests are covered equally?
Well, I think that's a great question. I think the arts are incredibly important. I think that one thing Fairfield, again, does an amazing job with is having band in school, having strings. My children have all had the opportunity to start an instrument starting in the 4th grade, which I think is just an incredible opportunity. I'm not familiar specifically with how much funding specific sports are getting versus the arts. But I would say that if there is a huge discrepancy, we should look into, and believe booster clubs are primarily fundraising organizations. So how can we increase fundraising for arts organizations so that we can have more opportunities for those students? I know that the high schools put on, and the middle schools actually, wonderful drama clubs. They have wonderful plays. I've gone and I've watched many students, perform, and we have so much talent in this district. And, I would just really look for opportunities to increase awareness maybe of a lot of these opportunities, so that we can, support them too. And they are definitely just as important. So it's a great question and a great issue.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. O'Neill.
I would agree that Fairfield does a wonderful job at exposing students to the arts and specifically music within our schools. Sports are also a really wonderful way to develop a student's self-confidence and self-worth. So I don't want to pit the two of them against one another. However, I think this is a good opportunity to engage the community, engage teachers and even students themselves to see, before we talk about changing funding, what kind of programs would students be interested in seeing in schools? What would parents be interested in seeing in schools? And start there with the actual students who would be taking part in these programs before we talk about funding.
Thank you. Mr. Asai.
So I won't lie, I'm a sports guy. I'm big into sports. But I will say, when I moved to Fairfield in 2007, I was blown away by how let's use the music program, for example, in this town was so robust and so magnificent, to be honest with you. And how many students participated in sports and how many students participated in the arts. And I think we have a very unique and wonderful thing in this town. I think we do it better than a lot of towns. And our music program, for example, and our arts programs are recognized every year. And I think that is great. I will say that, the support for sports, and you talk about booster clubs, and some sports do, it takes more to do it. But I will say that I do not believe that our district has or will intentionally underfund the arts over sports. I do believe that boards for years and decades, and administrations current and previous, have been supportive, and I've seen more investment in the arts lately, and I support it. So.
Thank you.
Okay. I'll tackle this question in 3 different areas: budget, stipends, curriculum. So let's start with budget. A lot of our items are arts items, music, plays, et cetera, are contained into the budget, and the budget is determined by the Board of Ed and then goes forward to the other town bodies. So ensuring that we have funding available across the arts, available in our budget to not only maintain but expand and enhance our offerings is the first area. 2, I'm not sure if everyone knows this, but our staff, for the large part, are stipended to provide these extracurricular opportunities outside of their regular work hours. And those stipends haven't been changed, and I don't know how long. So in the last negotiation, I really pushed in order for us to take a hard look at how we are stipending our staff in terms of equity between sports, arts, the chorus instructor versus the football coach, right? And how are we looking at these? And like Mr. Ace has said, some people have more responsibilities and bigger numbers, and then of course there's going to be a variance. But we need to make sure that we're offering enough incentive for people to want to stick around after school and offer these opportunities to our kids, because if it's, that's a lot of time and a lot of responsibility. So budget, stipend, curriculum, our elementary kids through high school, we have to ensure that we're maintaining our focus on the arts as well, and not overemphasizing too much, obviously, on things like English and math and science, but also making sure that we're putting into our schedules the time for students to explore these other areas as well. And recently, a few years ago, art time was cut down at the elementary level, and some of us worked pretty hard to get that time restored, and it was just in this last budget. So I think it comes down to importance of how much the board puts behind it, is willing to advocate for these things for different areas, not just the arts and sports, but other things too, that our kids that we know are really interested in as well. So that's my answer.
Thank you. Next question goes back to Ms. O'Neill. Let me just wait. I want to make sure I have a time from Ms. Jacobson. Thank you. Okay. All right, next question is, with the massive increase in housing across town, how do we plan to fund the education system, both in terms of staff increases and infrastructure expansion?
Well, good question. Well, with any increase in housing is going to bring an increase in tax revenue. So some of that problem can take care of itself. However, again, I don't want to pit housing against education. I think that's a dangerous argument to get into. I'm supportive of housing and having places for our students and our teachers to live so that they can be a part of our community. I think that's integral. As a former teacher, I just think we should be supporting both housing and education.
Thank you. Mr. Asai.
With regard to this, this is something that is continuing to grow. We're looking at the massive developments, heavily centered on the Commerce Drive side of town. And looking at the availability of space in our schools. I think it is imperative that our town plan accordingly, and I'm happy that most recently the Board of Education was able to, work with planning and zoning committees to try and make sure that education is part of our long-term plan. While it's in there, I don't think enough emphasis has been given to it over time. And I think we are going to run into a problem. Now, I will say that we have had presentations and know that massive apartment complexes and developments don't necessarily equate to hundreds of kids. So I think we do need to take into consideration the equations that are historically trending and what we expect, that, however many point kids, per units. But the bottom line is they're still building, and they're building and they're coming. And we have to be very careful about where we place these developments throughout town. Because regarding infrastructure, it is going to be an issue, and it has continued to be. McKinley is overcrowded. It's going to be busting at the seams. And racial imbalance aside, which we have hopefully, put to bed for a while, that school is still going to need to alleviate space. And, we have projects on our long-term capital waterfall and projects that are going through approval processes now that should hopefully open up more space, and we plan accordingly, so that when we have the next several projects done, we are able to put the kids where they can fit. But it is going to, as far as staff increases, I believe we'll manage that, but I don't have a crystal ball. So at the end of the day, we're going to have to fund the staff that is required for the number of sections of kids, right? So it is inevitable there. So it is something that the town as a whole should be looking at and considering.
Thank you. Ms. Jacobson.
So this is an area that I have been heavily engaged in for a very, very long time. The intersection between planning and zoning, finance and Board of Ed are connected. The reality is that for our town, most of the development is concentrated into just a couple of our census tracts. That means there's disparate impact upon the schools that are contained in those areas. So while people may cite an average of 0.13 or 0.15 student per unit, that is absolutely not the case. There are certain schools that are carrying far more of that, and that, per Mr. Asa's commentary, those schools will have more students, whether it be at the middle or secondary, because not all of them are going into elementary. They go to middle school and high school too. So that's something that we plan for. The theory is, or I hope the truth is that the additional tax revenue from the development funds not only schools, but police and fire as well, right? These are primarily the three services when you have an increase in population, that the services of the town that need to increase with that. I am advocated that the plan of conservation and development, which is the Planning and Zoning Commission is working on finalizing now, did not originally contain an education section, and advocated, and the board did submit a statement to ensure that our schools are included in this town's 10-year infrastructure and land use plan. And it was added. And we need to make sure that our schools are not forgotten in this development process and how that becomes impacted by that. And I plan to hopefully collaborate and partner with them and look forward to ongoing conversations with them and the town and how we're going to plan for this going forward in our schools. So.
Thank you. Ms. Barnwerper.
Thank you. Yeah, this is something that's made me nervous for a long time. I feel like you could just see, you could see that the crash is coming, that these developments are going to go up and we are going to have overcrowding problems. You could already see it around town, schools that were made to have 3 sections, like elementary schools are now at 4 sections. Schools are converting, some of their computer labs are becoming classrooms. Like you could see that our schools are at capacity and specifically, on the one side of town. And that is just because that's where most of the developments are going. I think it was a great step to, that this board just recently approved the new building at Dwight and to include the early childhood center, that hopefully that having more classrooms over for them over there can maybe give us some more space. But I mean, it's still a huge problem because some of our schools can't even be expanded. I mean, you look at Sherman Elementary, for example, it's in the flood zone. It has to be expanded very slowly and in stages to stay under the FEMA cap for renovations. And I mean, that's a concern. And I think it's a great step that we are now working with planning and zoning. When I first looked at that plan, I was very worried that there was no education component. And I think that's fantastic that we are now working together. And I think it's going to be an ongoing conversation for the next decade or so, that this is a real problem. And it's something we're going to really have to work on. And as for teacher salaries, I'll just go back to, again, what I said, I think in one of the first questions. We can't cut teacher salaries. We can't touch teacher salaries. We have to hire the teachers we need. We need talented educators. And the town's going to have to find a way to pay for it. Hopefully the developments provide enough revenue in taxes that we can do so.
Thank you. I'm sorry, were you done?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Okay, this will be our last question. And at this moment, Ms. O'Neill, you have a lot of time, so feel free to elaborate.
How much time does she have?
She has a lot more. Everybody else has more or less under. Oh, well, actually, Ms. Barnwerper, you're right there too. This question goes to Mr. Asai first, so you guys are able to elaborate. Mr. Asai and Ms. Jacobson have, sorry, have under 2 minutes. Okay, here's the question. It goes to you first, Mr. Asai. Why are you a good candidate for the Board of Education? Is there a particular issue that motivates you and inspires you to serve on the board?
I came on the board in May of 2017 as an appointment to fill a vacancy. And in November of 17, was elected to a 4-year term and again in 2021. It took me a long time to get to the point to be here tonight. I felt originally that 8 years was enough and that I had given my time and my effort and energy. But I also believe that there are still things that are not finished from when I came on the board, such as our long-term facilities plans, some of our projects. I really do want to see those through, and I want to advocate for all of our kids and our staff. It has been eye-opening to see how education is different than the private sector. I won't lie, when I came onto the board as a businessman, I thought, oh, I'm going to come on here and have great ideas and change. And quickly, I took the time to learn that education doesn't function the same as the private sector, but it does function in a way in which that it works, and it needs the support of a level-headed, productive board to support the administration, to support the staff, and to work to ensure that our children, all 9,000 plus of them, have an equal opportunity, a great place to go to school, learn, and feel included. And I'm out of time.
Great question. Before I became a member of this board, I was a longtime education advocate. And what I will say is it's been truly an honor and a privilege to serve the community, but mostly our kids. I I have a background in education. I have a master's in education. What I started out my career in. Since moved into prevention. I'm a member of the Fairfield Cares Coalition Prevention Council, which serves as our local prevention council here. Addressing things like mental health for students. Over time, I would agree with Mr. Asa, yet you come to appreciate different aspects of this job. And what I think that I've tried to do is connect us to other entities such as planning and zoning, such as different departments and collaborating with them. We obviously have a strong collaboration with our first responders, but really being a part of advocating for how our schools are part of this community in such a profound way. And they serve our students, yes, during the day, but they are also places of emergency management. They are places where you all vote. They are places where we have arts performances. Our schools are our centers and our hearts of our community, and it's something that I truly love. I'm an honor to do. And I hope to continue to do so. But as Mr. Asa said, there is still a lot of work to do, a lot of challenges for us to address. And I, am not shy of rolling up my sleeves and putting in a lot of long hours in order to make sure that we're providing the best education that we can and being really good fiscal stewards with your tax dollars and how we spend that money. So I have an extensive background and I am honored to be here before you tonight. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Barnworper.
Well, I'm honored to be sitting up here with two board members who have given so much of their time and talents to Fairfield. Like I've watched them on FairTV for many years and they've just been such fabulous additions to the board. So it's really special to be up here. I've been like interested in education probably for my whole life. Some people may remember, if they remember when I last was before you, my mom was an ELL student in Fairfield. So she learned English in Fairfield Public Schools. And she always told me that education is the most important gift. It's like the most important tool that we can have. And it's through education that, you get to experience the whole world. And she always said, it's because my parents settled in Fairfield that I had the opportunities I had, that this community is what gave her the opportunities that she was able to give me. And that just always really resonated with me. It pushed me through school. After school, I joined Teach for America and I taught in an underprivileged community in Charlotte, North Carolina. And really just, being exposed to so many different communities and students, it was a short experience, but it really was a life-changing one in many ways and really just made me love education and want to ensure that all children receive the same opportunities. If I had to pick an issue that's near and dear to my heart, it's always been closing that achievement gap. It's doing whatever we can to ensure our literacy scores are the same across middle schools. After COVID, there was such disparity in scores across those 3 middle schools. I took one look, I was like, this is a problem. What are we doing to solve this problem? And that's something that I've continued to care about, something I hope to be involved on in the board is, being involved with new curriculum decisions and, helping support our teachers and students and our superintendent in making those very important decisions. Because there's nothing more important than giving our children the skills they need to go out in the world and develop their talents. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Sonia.
Thank you. I'm honored to be sitting here tonight and to hopefully be serving on this board. I'm the best candidate for this job because I am a teacher. I have always been a teacher. I have a master's degree in secondary education, and then I immediately went into teaching in the Stanford Public Schools, where I was an English language arts teacher. I taught 10th and 11th grade for 10 years. So I understand what challenges teachers face in the classroom. I understand what goes into making a school work. And I understand the discrepancy sometimes between what people hear and what actually goes on in those buildings. When I was a teacher, I worked specifically on district improvement plans and school improvement plans. And I was on several curriculum committees as an English language arts teacher. So it's been mentioned before tonight about the new English curriculum that the state of Connecticut mandated that all districts implement last year and that Fairfield has implemented. And I support that. I support the science of reading. Obviously, I saw for myself when children got, or maybe I should say students got to 11th grade and were functionally illiterate. I saw what that looked like, and there was not much I could do at that point, being an 11th grade teacher. However, I also know that implementing a new curriculum is extremely difficult. What that looks like day to day isn't the same as what it looks like on paper. And I know that there have been challenges for especially our elementary teachers implementing that new curriculum. So that is something I would specifically really like to work on. I've also been a part of Moms Demand Action, which is a group that works to prevent gun violence. Something I'm also extraordinarily passionate about and would like to bring to this board. Like to do everything I can to keep our students safe. And the last thing I would like to mention is I have been part of Fairfield's RTM for the last 2 years. And I have really learned through that experience, I would say 2 things. One, I learned how municipal government works, what it looks like to pass a town budget and the different steps it needs to go through. But second of all, I have really learned what it means to listen. I think all of us, when we hear about an issue, we have our initial thoughts and our initial beliefs, but we have to listen, and to be part of a board, and specifically the Board of Education, we really need to listen to the other side and take a second to really think about that other side of the issue, the flip side, before we go and make a decision that will be affecting our children and our community.
Thank you very much. Time for closing statements. Ms. Bardenwerper, you may go first.
Great. So thank you so much again to the League of Women's Voters of Fairfield for hosting this evening's debate, to my fellow candidates for participating, and especially to those of you here in the audience, both watching and here in person, and to those who took the time to submit questions. I hope that through this evening, you've learned a little bit more about me, what I value in a school system, specifically the importance that all children receive access to the very best education that we can give them, regardless of their background, their abilities, or where they live in town. We're so lucky in Fairfield to have such a great team of talented and dedicated educators working to make this happen every day. I can't tell you how many times as a parent, I've just been singing the praises of our elementary school, and most recently the middle school, which, I mean, it still amazes me. Somehow Fairfield has taken what are usually the worst years of your life and made them such an amazingly positive experience. I cannot say enough amazing things about our middle school, or the one that my daughter attends. I think they're all 3 are probably fabulous. But of course, Fairfield is a diverse town with ever-changing needs. There will always be new issues to address, district needs to examine, and programs to explore, whether it be the development of a new curriculum or the need for more space in a new school. As a board member, I will remain committed to supporting our superintendent and working with town officials to ensure our district continues to provide our students with the best experience that it can. I promise to support policies and decisions that will allow our students to feel safe, included, and valued, so they can develop the critical academic skills that will allow them to succeed in the future, no matter where their goals may take them. In addition, I promise to always listen, to focus on collaboration, and to never stop learning, whether it's new research or, from a fellow board member, town body, or from you. I'm really excited, to receive the questions and comments and feedback from the, I think that's a big part of this. And so thank you very much. I'm excited for the opportunity and privilege.
Thank you. Ms. Jacobson, you have 2 minutes.
We're going the other way. Okay. No worries. Okay. Hey, thanks so much for everyone coming tonight, and to the league for hosting us and organizing this wonderful event for us. Look, 2 minutes is not a long time for my closing, but what I will say to you is that going into this, I have a few goals, and that's to continue to strengthen and move our district forward, to face the topics and challenges that come our way, and they do, with both fiscal but educational responsibility. to ensure that all of our kids receive the very best education and opportunities that we can provide to them with your partnership and collaboration to prepare them for their lives after they leave us in the best way that we can. To ensure that our teachers, our educators, and our staff all work and learn in safe and healthy environments. And in that area, we have some work to do still in our infrastructure needs. And make sure that we always have the resources that they need in order to fulfill their responsibility and for us to fulfill our mission here tonight. Those are a lot of big words. It's a really big responsibility. It's a profound responsibility. Every day, thousands of people come to our campuses. We're ultimately responsible for making sure that they are well taken care of and protected and given the opportunities that I know that Fairfielders expect. Staff. This is one that I think most people know, but if you don't, that I take really, really seriously. And while of course, I'm sure we're all here asking for your vote tonight, it is really your trust that I'm asking for in this job. I want to lastly just say that, our board is inextricably linked to the Board of Finance, which you're going to hear from some of those candidates shortly. They're really important to us and the RTM as well, and is it planning and zoning. Board of Selectmen is not on this ballot on November 4th, but also the Board of Selectmen. Sorry, I'm up. I look forward to the opportunity to reach out with any questions, and thank you for coming tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Isa.
All right, well, thank you to everybody for being here and for hosting this event. A couple things I want to just hit on is that, we've talked through some of the questions about investments and everything, and I just want to stress that what I've learned on the board is that the term ROI is not always monetary. It's important to know that our return on investment can be in various and many different forms, and ultimately it's in the outcome of our students and what is offered to them and the supports that they receive. I'm committed to continuing to support our administration, our staff. We have 1,000 staff in our schools, and then we have additional staff. I mean, it is mind-boggling how many people this district employs in our town, and what a huge percent of our budget it is. But that investment in those staff members directly correlates to our kids and the experiences that they get and the outcomes that they achieve. I do want to hit on an idea that didn't really come up tonight in questions, is what is the role of a board member? Mrs. Jacobson mentioned, how statutorily it drives a lot of what we do. And I think there's a lot of misconceptions out there of how powerful a board member is. We don't have power away from the table. We are just like you. We are regular citizens, we're parents, we're community members. Where our job comes into play is when we're at meetings. And we have to take our job seriously. And I think I've done that for the last 8+ years and plan to continue to do that and look at every item that's in front of us on the basis and the merit and the facts, and make decisions and make votes based on what is in the best interest, and not necessarily what the majority may think, or a group or an interest group or anything, but literally look at everything on its merit and vote accordingly in what's in the best interest of our district. And hitting on the topic of collaboration, we continue to do that. So thank you, everybody, for tonight.
Thank you. I also want to thank the League of Women Voters for hosting us tonight, and for everyone who's in attendance. I really appreciate you taking time out of your day to hear what we all have to say. I want to just for 1 second, just be a little personal. I have 2 children in the Fairfield Public Schools, and I am not here for them. I am here for all of the students, and I intend to take that very seriously, to make sure that when I am making a decision, I am thinking of all of the students in our district. But what I did want to say about my own children is that they have both faced difficulties during their times in the school system. And I cannot adequately express the compassion that has been showed to them, the understanding, the patience, the services that have been offered to them. And why I am here is to make sure that those opportunities are extended to every student in our school system. And actually, Mr. Asa reminded me of something when you were answering the question about funding and housing. And when we think about those things, if there are more students in our school system, what we really need to do is plan adequately. I think this current board has done a fantastic job of planning, especially when it comes to facilities, creating a long-term waterfall and a long-term plan of where all of our students are going to go. When we look at the new Dwight, they all need a safe building to be in every day. But I think we also need to look at programming and what our children need for both their academic needs as well as their social and emotional needs. And what will that look like? So thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, thank you all. That concludes our Board of Education today. We'll take a 10-minute break. I'll be back at. Hey, listen. questions in as possible. We have cumulative time. Each member will have 10 minutes cumulatively. You will have timers across from you who will tell you how much time you have left of those 10 minutes. At the end, we'll do closing statements of 2 minutes and reverse the order of which we did with the questions. So hopefully we can get to at least 6 or 7 questions as we did last time. And please, if you haven't already, silence your cell phones and away we go. We ready?
Ready.
Okay. The first question goes to you, Mr. Lynch. What are your top priorities for the Board of Finance?
Hi, everybody. I'm Brendan Lynch. Thank you for hosting us tonight, the League of Women Voters. My top commitments on the Board of Finance is the trust that the town has given us and the history the town has given us for a AAA credit rating. I want to make sure that we stay solid, spend our money wisely, right? We have an incredible town, a great budget. I am 100% behind education and all the funding for the fire, the police, the infrastructure that we need. I just want to make sure we're fiscally responsible with those dollars.
Thank you. Mr. Ellwanger.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. I've got a couple of major objectives if I were on the Board of Finance. First and foremost, I think it's imperative that we keep tax increases much lower than the rate of inflation. We've been able to successfully do that the last 2 years as a town. And I think that's a major objective of mine personally. I also, as part of that, want to make sure that we scrutinize every line item in the budget, revenues, expenses, and that we leave no stone unturned so that we are really thoughtful about the budget that we put together. My second priority would be more internal audits. I've been really impressed with the last couple of years with the work that has been done out of the audit subcommittee of the Board of Finance, with the audits that have been conducted. 3 years ago, I think we conducted 8. 2 years ago, 14 internal operational financial audits were conducted. Last year, 15. And my understanding is we're at 9 or 10 so far with 3 months to go. And they've uncovered things about our operations and where we need to tighten up. Who knew how many, if you remember back a few years, we had lots of town employees with town credit cards. We had lots of town employees with town cell phones, and we kind of reined that all in, and we kind of, I think, uncovered that as part of our audits. The third thing I'm passionate about, and a big objective, and I spent 38 years in a major corporation, financial services firm, and governance is really important. We had rules and procedures. They were in writing. We had purchasing policies. We had a contract management system. And you couldn't go to the guy in the cubicle next to you with a pink voucher and say, would you sign off on this rec? Because I need a new printer. And so we need to continue, be vigilant about making sure that everyone uses the purchasing system, contract project management system within town, and that we have written procedures and guidelines for every process townwide.
Thank you. Just a note, Mr. Penley, just remember you have 10 minutes total, so keep your answers concise if you can.
Okay, I'll keep it brief. My biggest
Sorry,
concern
Mr.
going forward is the scale of the capital projects we have ahead of us and the impact that's going to have on our operating budget. So my priority is to maintain the standard of services that the town demands in a tighter budget, and that's going to be challenging. Secondary goal is to take the temperature down a little bit on local politics. It's been one of the big reasons I got involved in this in the first place. I think if we do that, we start collaborating a little bit more, we stop politicizing every single issue that comes before us, we're going to be in a better position to find solutions. And I think that we've done a pretty good job this year, but we have room for improvement. At our best, we're a process-oriented body. At our worst, we're sniping at each other.
Thank you. Mr. Myers.
Hi, my name is Jim Myers, and thank you all for being here tonight. I would say after being on the board for the past year, my top priority is that we need fiscal discipline and responsible oversight. it's a little sad sometimes when you get the internal auditors come in and they report on things in our town. And you know, things are out of control and we need to tighten up things. So, you know, that is a priority. I feel that as a CPA, a former auditor, CFO, I bring the skill set that is needed. I want to work closely with the administration, the CFO, to provide best practices and, you know, a relationship with them that knows that, you know, we got their backs and we're here to help and we're here to get the trust of the residents back. So.
Thank you. Next question goes to you first, Mr. Elwanger. How much higher do you think the debt service will grow in town based on the large capital projects on the long-term plan?
That's a terrific question. I think we've done an excellent job managing our debt service so far. We have guidelines that we're allowed to tap surplus, and we try to maintain a surplus to expense ratio in the 12% range. And we've been able to manage our budgets, this most current budget. We had to access that a bit to balance the budget for fiscal year 26. And I've been impressed with that. I think that we've done a good job of that, and we have some room to continue to really watch that. I think having seen and participated in the meeting a week or so ago where the waterfall was updated and presented, I'm really impressed that we've thoughtfully put together almost $500 million budget with over 50% of that just for school infrastructure and capital projects over a 10-year period. And I'm really comfortable with the fact that that was issued. I'm also comfortable with the fact that in June, we had a $45 million general obligation bond that was issued, more than half of that going to school infrastructure projects. Those certainly seem to be well within our wheelhouse as a Board of Finance and readily managed. So I have no concerns about that.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Penley.
Yeah, I mean, I think I am concerned about the scale of the capital plan. It's projected to, the debt service is projected to go over 8.5%, somewhere in that range. Debt service to operating expenses. That is, should give everybody pause. We have a formal policy of 10%, but we're trying to leave some room. And the reality is that some of these projects come in a lot higher than we expect. The reality is that other forces could impact our operating budget. So it's a concern, but as it is now, it's doable. And frankly, we got to this place only recently. We were only recently able to even project this out. And that's largely to the credit of the current board, which has done a great deal to improve the quality of the information that we're looking at and improve our ability to make better decisions. So as it is now, yeah, we've got a big slate of capital projects ahead of us. Is it within our policy limits? Absolutely. Is it cause for concern? A little bit, yeah. I wouldn't turn you back from it.
Thank you. 1 minute. The timer for Mr. Myers, can you give me the last number he had before, what he has right now?
8:58.
Thank you. Okay, Mr. Myers, go ahead.
Okay, so, you know, the good news is like Shane said, we have a very good plan. The bad news is that we have a ton of projects. A lot of that is because we have kicked the can down the road. And we're now at the point where we have to do these things. I'm confident that, you know, the debt service, the ratio, it used to be more like 7%. It's getting closer to like 8.5. We're gonna never get to 10 because we have to make sure that we're covering, you know, on like a hurricane, something like that. You just don't see and want or expect. But, you know, I think that we're going to make sure that all the projects are 20-year type projects, that we're not putting things onto this, we're not, you know, paying, you know, interest on something that, you know, we should be running through our operating budget. So that's something that we're very cognizant of. And then, you know, the other thing too is that, you know, we have assigned resources, and I mean like human resource people to the WPCA to help them in coming up with better plans. You know, that, I would say that infrastructure part of our plan, of our capital plan, is pretty significant, and it really, we just weren't watching. And I think we now have the right people in place. Michelle Gore is there as the general manager, and she's doing a great job. So
Thank you. Okay, next question goes to you, Mr. Penley, first.
I didn't answer that question.
I'm sorry. Go ahead. You're
May
right. Yes, you may.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
I was ahead of myself.
We talk about this 10% that we'd like to keep at the debt service. We absolutely need 1% for emergencies, right? We know another superstorm or some catastrophe may come in the next 5 to 10 years. Anybody who talks about climate change and is a denier still, we've lived through it. And so it's going to happen again, and we got it. We've got to keep some reserves for there. As Jim mentioned on the water authority treatment center, we have to deal with that, right? We've just approved like $77 million. What we really need to do on these capital plans is great to put pen to the paper, but we have to ensure that then we keep strict guidelines on what those budgets are, right? Typically contractors will come in, they'll tell you a number, so they don't scare you what that is. You start getting into it and all of a sudden it's like, no, goes up 20, 30, 40%. So we absolutely need a really good capital works team and to hold them to it. To follow up on Bob on the audits and how the audits have done, I'm a huge advocate to double, right? We have one great internal auditor. We need a second one, right? The numbers that come up to the board, we can't look at 1,000 employees and everybody who's spending money, right? We give more than 50% to the Board of Ed, let that go on education. That's fantastic. All other expenditures, right? We got to keep a close eye on. As Jim mentioned too, and what do you put in capital to try to keep a lower budget for operating? We really have to ensure that the capital plan is for things that are 5, 10, 15, 20 years. They're big numbers. They scare people. Amortize it over 20 years. Make sure the work is done up front. And make sure the repairs and maintenance, right, are spent out of the operating budget to get the longest life we can for our dollars.
Okay, thank you. This question, now we can go to Mr. Penley. This question goes to you first. What financial risks do you think Fairfield needs to prepare for, and how should the town plan ahead?
So, you know, again, starting with the capital plans, there's the risk that some of these projects do come in higher than we expect. That's absolutely a risk. And frankly, it's been the history of our town. They come in higher. We have potential liabilities relating to the fill pile that are astronomical. We think they're less, but they're high. Natural disasters are, of course, present risk. But the big issue, again, is to go back to the capital plan, is that projects come in high. A more perhaps remote risk is that we get a loss of revenue because of cuts from the federal government. And maybe not that remote anymore. But if the state were to have to, for example, shuffle around its priorities to cover healthcare or something like that, well, then we could be looking at a shortfall. So those are all risks. Those are all realities. But probably the most proximate one would be that you get one of these big projects that comes in, like Dwight, that comes in substantially higher.
Thank you. Mr. Myers.
In terms of financial risk, clearly interest rates are always a concern. We have to control interest rates and not have those drive our bonds and whatnot. But I really worry about the things that I feel like we're not controlling and things we just can't predict. And, you look at the overdevelopment in this town. When I asked the superintendent, what the impact of the overdevelopment is going to have on enrollment. The honest answer is he doesn't know, because we're not going to know until these people move in. And, you were, I think, sometimes told by the developers that they're single family, maybe 1 bedroom, 2 bedrooms, and it's unlikely that families will move in. But that is something that could really drive infrastructure costs and more schools, sewers and whatnot. We're already putting a major investment into the East Trunk line, which is going over to, where the new, train station is in, over 50 Black Rock. So those are the risks I foresee.
Thank you. Mr. Lynch.
I agree with all three gentlemen up here on the financial risks are those that, right, you try to plan for, but really have, right, you need the contingency plan. You need to be able to say, when we're talking about the couple percent of keeping money away in reserve. The town is in great shape, has reserve money, there are evaluations that are coming up. To offset that versus the mill rate. We don't want to scare anybody and say, oh, what big risk is out there that you can't plan for, right? As Jim mentioned, we have to keep an eye on how this housing is going up, how many cars are coming in, how much is going to truly be foot traffic, and how many people are coming in with children, right? It's $25,000 per year currently to educate a child. If we get another 400 kids in, where is even that footprint to put, right? So we do have that risk on saying, we're running out of land in town to be able to just turn around and say, hey, that's okay. We'll increase mill rate and build a school and keep growing. So we've got that concern that we have to really keep an eye on it. I think every single year, as opposed to saying, oh, no, more people, more people might move out than come in. Everybody who grew up in Fairfield loves this town and wants to stay in this town, which is fantastic, right? And restart families in this town. And with heavier density coming in, who knows who's actually going, will we get young families in that decide to stay and put their children through our school system?
Thank you. Mr. Ellwanger.
So I echo all of the risks that my colleagues have identified. I think one thing worth mentioning as well, though, and a concern I have, and I think a risk we face, is that we've had sluggish growth in the grand list for the last several years. And my concern is on the long term, if we don't really manage our expenses tightly across the board, that at some point we'll be in a negative growth situation. We need to stimulate the commercial grand list. I remember 40, 50 years ago, I've been in town that long, to remember we had a thriving retail community downtown. Many of you remember the retail stores we had there, the vibrancy, and we lack that retail sense in our downtown. We can maybe develop it in pockets elsewhere, but I'm concerned. I think a risk we face is that by not continuing to grow the commercial tax base and the overall grand list, that at some point we're going to be in a situation where we're going to force to make some cuts and programs in services, personnel, what have you. And that may be down the road. Maybe it's something, though, I think we can perhaps foresee and get in front of.
Thank you. Next question goes to you first, Mr. Myers. Just 1 second. I'm going to make sure I'm getting everybody's time in. Thank you very much. Okay, here we go. What is your plan to combat builders who are taking advantage of state laws to overload our community with needs we can't meet in terms of traffic, public works, education, social services, and more?
Well, I mean, to be quite honest with you, it sounds like more of a question for the town planning and zoning. But, I'll try and answer that as best I can. I mean, I think we need to continue to have a dialogue in our town. Anecdotally, you talk to people and they all say, I can't even get across town without planning. I can only go during certain hours of the day. And yet, we still don't really fight Hartford in trying to tell us how to build our town. So that's my own personal feeling about this issue. I don't know what I can do as a member of the Board of Finance to stop Hartford from doing that, other than to reach out to every resident and say, call Hartford and say no more. That's really the honest answer. And elect officials who support protecting Fairfield as the town, the size it is, the town that I grew up in. It's not the small town feeling anymore. And if we don't watch it, we're going to become a city.
Thank you. Mr. Lynch.
I second Jim's comments in that I moved here in 1998, right? And I'm a half a mile from Black Rock Turnpike. And every year Black Rock becomes more and more of a gridlock, right? On weekends. And there's only certain times of the day that if you want to get in and out in 15 minutes, that if you have that time that you can go up and down the turnpike. I'm with Bob on saying build commercial base, but you build commercial base without having infrastructure of the roads. I don't see how we do it, right? We all miss having GE and having the property tax in from GE, but I don't think there's any quick solution to say, bring more businesses downtown, because Post Road is also gridlock. And where do we put the parking? So high density sounds great when they say more people are going to walk or ride bikes, but Fairfield isn't really a town that, you know, everybody still has a car, or 2 cars or 3 cars in a driveway once their kids are in high school and up to get around to all the activities. So I don't think there is any quick solution here, but I'm with it that we say, hey, planning and zoning, and everybody pick up the phone and call Hartford and say, everybody's going to lose that small town feel. You know, there's reasons that cities are cities that have that infrastructure for bigger commercial development.
Thank you. Mr. Elwinger.
Yeah, I totally agree. There's not much any one of us on the board can do in this arena to combat builders and overdevelopment and extremely dense development and high rises. You know, the 8-30G law was passed 35 years ago, still in effect, and it usurps our planners' ability to have local control. The good news is that, as you probably know, we have a moratorium. We have a backlog of applications that are still kind of working their way through the commission. Hopefully there's light at the end of the tunnel there. And they've been working so hard every single week, I think for the last year, TTZ on looking at each and every one of these, but their hands are tied in many respects. I do know that historically, not every single 8-30G development that gets approved actually ever gets built. And we do need to, that tempers it somewhat. And mostly it's because they can't, the developer can't obtain the necessary financing. And so it reverts back or it just stays empty. That does happen. It can happen. Fingers crossed, we'd like to think, and we'll know in the next year or so, whether we have enough housing unit equivalency points to file an extension and get us 5 more years of a moratorium. And that would be wonderful. I think we're close, but we're not there just yet. We need shovels in the ground probably by next spring in order to see a certificate of occupancy that allows us to claim those points and qualify. So we have a ways to go there. I'm cautiously optimistic that that will happen. And that buys us, you know, up to 9 years to fend off, if you will, the development.
Thank you. Mr. Penley.
Yeah, well, I agree with pretty much what everyone has said. Maybe a question better pointed at a different board, but I mean, I'm a practical person. And the reality is we have a law that's been in effect for a long time. We've had a long time to comply with the law. We haven't. So calling Hartford is probably not going to get us there. What we can do is take control of our own zoning and build out enough when we get this moratorium to stay ahead of it. I mean, you want a real solution to this, that's what you have to do. You can't hope that Hartford's going to change your mind, because I just don't think the political will's there across the state. That's the reality. So we have to have zoning that allows us to build in a way that is okay with us, in a way that comports with our aesthetic vision of the town. I think short of that, the reality is you're just going to continue to see these nasty developments that we don't like. Thanks.
Thank you. Next question goes to you first, Mr. Lynch. How would you save taxpayer money without cutting services?
There's many ways to save taxpayer money without cutting services. The best way to do it is zero cost budgeting. You start from essential services needed and what are you paying for it, and does it go out to bid? How is that money being spent? Is there too many layers that are going through review? Is it spent efficiently? Going out to bid, having policies and procedures to ensure, right? If you can do something on a 3-year or 5-year contract, after going for 3 bids, typically you can get 5, 10, 15% discounts, right? But you don't sign up with a contractor you've never used before, don't have references from other towns, and just say, oh, it's a friend of mine, I've heard about him, I heard he's good, right? So you can, I think you review all of the current contracts that are out there, see how long they're for, and make sure you go out and adequately get 2, 3 other bids in at a given time. So.
Thank you. Mr. Elwanger.
That's a great question. I think the Board of Finance has a couple of levers at its disposal. We make assumptions in putting our budgets together. Everyone does. We did that when I was in corporate. We do that as a town. One of the assumptions we make is what percent of tax revenue will we actually receive in a given year? And it's over 99%. And to bring in the budget that we currently have, I think the assumption was 99.12%. That it makes that much of a difference to go to 2 places. That means we have to reserve about $3 million in our budget to cover the uncollected property taxes. If we improve that ratio by 5 basis points, 6 basis points, that means we don't have to tap that entire reserve. That frees up available money in case we're in a situation where we're looking at cutting services, which I would think would always be a last resort. So that's a lever. We also have to keep in mind that in our town budget currently, we have about a $37 million revenue stream coming from non-tax revenue. These are fees, permits, when you weigh your garbage at the recycling center, when you golf at Smith, when you buy a beach sticker, it adds up to about 37 million. I would look on the revenue side way before we're at the point where we have to look at cutting a service and say, are there things here we can tweak? Again, the notion of levers to adjust and bring in a little more revenue so that we can offset and not need. It's a last resort to cut a service.
Thank you. Mr. Penley.
Yeah, I mean, everything Mr. Lynch and Mr. Elwanger said, I agree with. I think we're where we at today, which is a town that is facing these huge capital projects that will compress our budget, will put pressure on our budget. We're here because of very vertical thinking, because of failure to plan. And what we have done is we've crowded a ton of debt into a very short period of time. So the biggest lever the Board of Finance has is to do better planning. To take advantage of doing capital projects when interest rates are favorable and not delaying them to cause costs to compound and to have to finance them in a less favorable interest rate environment. You kind of see this all in the last meetings we've had. The last meeting we have, for example, we had a bonding request come from the police, and it was something that more properly should have been an operating expense. So right there, we're saving the town interest expenses. Kind of basic, but it's important. Better budgeting on the operating side, that's going to be driven by getting better information. We can't do much as a financial overview board if we don't have quality information. And I really think that that's going to depend, like Bob had mentioned earlier, increasing our internal audit capacity, because that's going to give us a lot more transparency in under the hood, so to speak. That'll allow us to better plan. And then absolutely everything Bob mentioned about the revenue side, but I would really focus on improvements we can make with planning, thinking more horizontally, less vertically. Thanks.
Thank you. Mr. Myers.
Yeah, I would just add that, from a standpoint of budgeting, I think the Board of Finance does a fantastic job of very thoroughly going through the town's budget. We spend 8 days in March, and we are probably there from 7 to 12 every night, just focused on going through every department's budget. And there may be like real tiny budgets that we skip, but everyone gets thoroughly reviewed. I think the biggest takeaway from last time was that, we were down personnel in, we didn't have a budget director for a portion of the year. And I think that impacted the ability to work with the department heads to bring the budget to the Board of Finance. So I think it's very key that we work with the department heads to thoroughly look at their budget. Some are very great and know everything that's in their budget. Some, they're kind of looking over to the administration and saying, I don't even know what's in this line. Can you help me? So we need every department head to know inside and out what is in their budget. The other thing we need to do is we need to help identify the non-recurring expenses. Too many times the budget comes up and they say, well, it only went up 1% from last time. Inflation's 2-3%. So that's a pretty good budget. And that's not how you should look at it. You should really look at it and say, well, did you go through your budget and say, what don't I need to do again next year to still be able to provide the services that you need to provide. That's that, zero-based budgeting concept.
Thank you. Okay, next question goes to you first, Mr. Elwanger. 1 second, I just want to see where we're at time-wise for Mr. Myers before we continue on. Okay, so Mr. Elwanger, Mr. Myers, you're running a little ahead of the others, so keep your answers. We have about, maybe we can get to 2 more questions. Okay. Mr. Elwanger, the question is for you first. What are your plans for tax relief for seniors so they can remain in Fairfield? Would you
I'm
cons-
afraid
hold
I
on,
can
wait,
take up my whole 2 minutes.
hold on, 1 second, 1 second. There's,
Was it
I'm
part
not-
B?
yes, there's a
Go
part
ahead.
B. Would you consider, this might help, would you consider freezing taxes when they reach 65 or eliminating the school tax altogether?
I have to start out by saying I'm really disappointed in where we are with the senior citizen and disabled tax relief program. It's mostly for senior citizens. There are a handful of disabled individuals who participate in that. I think it's something we ought to look at top to bottom, either scrap it, re-engineer it, see what other towns are doing. It's disappointing to me that in the last 4 years, we've gone from about 695 participants to less than 500. And we had budgeted 4.2 million 5 years ago, 4 years ago. Right now, in our current budget, we're going to give tax relief less than 3 million. So participation has declined. The amount that we're giving, I think we need to look at the asset requirements, which we haven't looked at. We adjust the income requirements every year for the Social Security cost of living increase. So I'm disappointed. I think we can do a better job. I've spent the last 10 years in retirement advocating for seniors so that they can stay in Fairfield. This could be a very vibrant program. Other communities have vibrant programs for seniors to give them tax relief. We just have to put it under the microscope and see if we could fix it and bring it back out, or just do something entirely different and brand new.
Thank you. Mr. Penley.
I think for this applies to seniors or for anybody who wants to see the cost of taxes go down in town. You've got to get your head around the existential need to grow. There's no way to really solve this question of affordability if you can't accept that we have to grow. That we can grow on our own terms, or we can grow on the terms of developers who come out of town and circumvent our zoning laws. But growth is the only answer to really manage affordability on an ongoing basis. I think there was a question about would I freeze taxes at 65? I would not. If any kind of tax relief should be means-based, it shouldn't be age-based. In terms of the senior tax debt relief credit, we looked at it. Actually, me and Dave Rock and Craig Curley sort of advocated on the Board of Finance to change the qualifying asset limit, and there really wasn't much interest in it, basically because it looks like that tax credit hadn't been used. The theory is that people are selling their houses and going away. But again, just to reiterate, I want to be candid with everybody. I really think the only way to manage affordability is to increase our revenue. Otherwise, you're talking about cutting expenses that I won't cut. I'm not cutting education. I'm not cutting fire and police. These are the things that keep our town essential. And we need to manage that. We need to manage all those priorities. Thanks.
Thank you. Mr. Myers.
So I would just say that, I would echo, I also did talk to Jim Walsh, who's a board member and has a lot of experience on this topic. And, he told me that Fairfield's tax relief, senior tax relief program is one of the best in the States. The fact that it's not getting utilized as much, I mean, that could be a portion of just getting the information out there. And I know there's a lot of effort that goes on at the senior center to get the word out there. But, I mean, it's the qualifying, they are what they are. And if people are qualifying, then, it suggests that they don't need the relief. So, we did propose the idea of exploring a freeze. It certainly would not be just based on age, but based on age and economic status. And whether that can be done or not, I think it's worth exploring. We would have to work with the other town boards. But I definitely think we should take a look at it.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Lynch.
I too agree with Jim on saying, let's explore it. It's very unfortunate that the number went down 600 to 400 or so, that it was cut by a third. Is that because people have moved away, or is it education that there's no seniors out there? So I would look to see how many seniors are out there. Are they all notified about it? And then also do it not on age based, but on means. What's the asset and what's the means for coming in cash on a tax freeze? If somebody has an asset and they want to work down on that asset, freeze their taxes and take it out of an estate. If they've got a big estate, there's an option there. But just to do straight age base, when the previous question was, do we cut services? It's really hard to reconcile that. There's the offset of that of saying, oh, okay, how much more tax is going up and the burden on everybody else? We'd love to say, hey, your kids are in school, you pay X amount while your children are in school, but that's not what the community is about. The community is about sharing all of the expenses across it. And we know education's 50%. So I am absolutely up for exploring it, but I'm with the other fellows on saying it's tough to cut, what expenses are you going to cut off of that and what services are you going to cut? But our seniors are here, their legacy. I absolutely want seniors as much as we are babies and the college kids and the high school kids. We want seniors in this town. We don't want to run the seniors out. That's so absolutely up for exploring.
Thank you. Okay, this will be our last question. And it starts with Mr. Penley first. What is your professional experience with financial management, budgeting, and forecasting?
So I'm a managing partner of investment advisory, manage about a little north of $500 million every day for my clients. And I counsel them on other wealth management related disciplines like estate planning, tax planning, lots of long-term financial planning. I work with businesses, I work with individuals, business succession planning. So it's sort of central to what I do. Previously, I was an attorney. I did mostly securities law, but all sorts of other things. And I run a small business. So every day I'm managing my own firm and budgeting and planning for the future and making choices on a smaller scale, certainly than the town's budget, but very much part of my daily professional life outside of my hobby.
Thank you, Mr. Myers.
So I started my career at a national firm, PricewaterhouseCoopers, and that's where I got my CPA and learned my auditing skills. Both are critical to serving on this board. I'm currently a chief financial officer for a paper broker here in Stamford, Connecticut. We're a small company, which I like because I get to have my hands in lots of things. We don't even have an HR department, and so I get to do those things. And I can tell you that the best satisfaction I've gotten in this past year is when I've been sitting in a meeting and a topic will come up. There was an issue that came up on unemployment insurance and how the town was handling it. And obviously all the audits that came up, I would definitely, but it's nice to be able to say, hey, I just dealt with this issue the other week and this is how we handled it. And, I turn to Tom, our CFO, and say, Tom, how can I help? So that is, it's meaningful to not just be in the room and try, but it's meaningful to actually bring that experience.
Thank you, Mr. Lynch.
Similar to Jim, I started my career in 1987 at PricewaterhouseCoopers in Manhattan. Did auditing for 4 years and then went into the financial services side for Bear Stearns for a couple of years, CS First Boston, and then married. My wife was working up here at IBM Capital. We lived in Stamford for 8 years, came up to Fairfield. I continued working in auditing, risk finance, operational management for AIG out of Westport and Wilton. So I have 38 years of experience as an accountant, as a risk manager, operational risk, market risk, credit risk. So I think I am incredibly qualified to give my long hours back to civic duty. I did 10 years on the baseball fields here at Fairfield, raising my children, was treasurer for 2 years. So accounting comes my way. I started taking accounting classes back in high school in junior year. So it's my sweet spot. So I love this town and I'm willing to, put in the hours here to give back to the town what it has given my family.
Thank you. Mr. Elwanger.
Thank you. I too feel extraordinarily qualified for a position on the board. I have a 37.5-year corporate career in financial services with New York Life Insurance Company and their corporate headquarters. Managed several divisions, several remote operations, managed 20, 30 years, significantly sized budgets, personnel. I understand governance, to my former point, that there are rules and as a mutual company, we were established so that it was a fiduciary relationship with our policy owners who own the company. That's the nature of a mutual insurance company. For the past 10 years in retirement, I've been actively involved in community service. I'm currently the treasurer of an Episcopal church in Easton on top of my current RTM duties. And I think all of that together provides me with skills and capacity for this position.
Thank you. Now we will start with closing statements. Mr. Myers, you may go first. 2 minutes.
Thank you to the League of Women Voters, our moderator, and all of you here and online for engaging in this important discussion. I also want to thank my fellow candidates for their time and commitment to Fairfield. During my time on the Board of Finance, I've seen firsthand stronger oversight and better judgment in managing taxpayer dollars. As a CPA, auditor, and CFO with over 30 years of experience, I know how to implement sound financial controls, hold leadership accountable, and ensure transparency regardless of party. Fairfield faces serious challenges: weak financial oversight, costly mistakes, diminished trust, as well as overdevelopment, straining our schools, roads, and budgets. My priorities are clear: restore fiscal accountability, strengthen internal controls by adding a second auditor, return to 2 auto tax installments, and prevent the next property revaluation from becoming a hidden tax hike. I'll also fight for a balanced education budget focused on classrooms, fair employee contracts, and tax relief options for seniors. I believe in collaboration, facts-based decisions, and practical solutions. Fairfield is my hometown. I grew up here. So did my wife, Sharon, who has taught here for over 25 years, and we have raised 3 kids. I want Fairfield to remain affordable and well-managed for the next generation. I ask for your vote on November 4th to keep Fairfield strong, accountable, and thriving. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Penley.
Thanks. I joined the Board of Finance in January 2024. I was appointed mostly, I guess, on the strength of my background, but I wanted to do it because civic engagement is important to me. I wanted to do it because on a 9-person board, there wasn't one millennial. There wasn't one person with kids who are young in the public school. And that is just a tragedy because we're not going to be making balanced decisions unless everybody's priorities are heard on this board. And I've worked very hard to get a command of the education budget and really advocate for it as a member of the board. I don't think that what we have here is a state of lack of financial oversight. The problems that we have been seeing here have been longstanding. They've way before my tenure on the board and way before Jim's as well. These are endemic problems with the town, and we're going to solve them when we stop politicizing everything. We're going to solve them when we start talking honestly. We start talking about the facts. This board that I'm on, I'm proud to serve. I'm proud to serve with Jim. We're a great board. We're a model of what a good financial board should look like. And it's not because we have credentials. We do have credentials. It's because we're process oriented. It's because we are focused on the work. And if we can stay that way, we're going to navigate this little transitional period where Fairfield has sort of outgrown its infrastructure and grown its government. We're going to get there, but we're not going to get there with sniping. We're not going to get there by pretending our hair is on fire. We have to be serious about the work, and that's what I want to do. I want to come and be serious about the work. I want to come and work in a collaborative manner, and that's what I've done since I've been on the board, and that's what I'm going to keep doing if you guys like me. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Elwanger.
Thank you to the League of Women Voters and all of you for being here and watching. I'm running for this board because I love this town. I'm passionate about serving the community, and I believe that I have the experience and energy to do the job. My background, as I mentioned, includes a 37-year corporate career at New York Life, where I oversaw large divisions and managed multi-million-dollar budgets. I also know what strong, effective governance looks like and why it matters. It's about rigorous and independent financial oversight, checks and balances, and adherence to written policies and internal control procedures. Since retiring in 2015, my community service has included 10 years with Fairfield Senior Advocates, which is a nonpartisan citizen action group committed to improving life in town for seniors. I've also served in the town's Affordable Housing Committee. I am a past board member of a hospice care home in Stamford. Currently, I serve as an RTM representative and also am the current treasurer of a local Episcopal church. I've lived in Fairfield for over 57 years. I'm a product of the school system, having graduated from Roger Ludlow in 1970. I know the proud tradition our town has: excellent schools, strong neighborhoods, a deep sense of community pride. And I also know that as a town, we face challenges: rising costs, aging schools and town facilities, as well as an aging sewer system. I appreciate that too many families worry about whether they can even afford to stay in town. If elected, I will push to maintain high-quality schools and keep tax increases well below the rate of inflation by scrutinizing town operating budgets and capital spending requests, all while protecting the town's AAA ratings. So I've been knocking on doors these past 4 weeks. A consistent theme I've heard is the need to keep Fairfield affordable, especially for young families and seniors. And I will always be mindful of this as a board member. On November 4th, I ask for your trust and your vote so that we can keep Fairfield affordable, strong, and moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lynch.
Thank you to the Women League voters and everybody who's here this evening for listening to us. And hearing our pitch on why we are the most qualified person to with your hard-earned dollars, tax dollars going to us. I agree with the three fellows who've all talked about prudent financial risk management, right? The policies and procedures, I think we need to hold the town and department heads to a tougher, higher limit, right? They said we've increased the audits to 15 last year. I think we need to double that, right? I think department heads, they will spend the money if you give them the money, right? They say, oh, okay, I've got to take care of my business. Whatever it costs, just make sure you fund me, right? Absolutely need the best schools we can have in Fairfield for the dollars. That doesn't mean, though, that we can't spend it wisely, right? I am looking and willing to put in the hours. I am currently at, I can't meet all the things you've done, Bob, in the last 10 years on your time. I'm still working full time, but at St. Pius, I'm on the finance committee over there. I've been part of church bazaars and church picnics and sports raising and booster raisings. And right, every dollar people say, I'll give you my money, but how's it going to be spent? Right. So I think people need to hold the Board of Finance accountable, and we in turn have to turn around and have a tough position and not just rubber stamp, right? Whatever, oh, the 2%. I really going to come onto the board. And when Jim said, hey, March, it's 8 hours, it's 8 days, 5 hours. I said, that's fantastic. You can know that the Board of Finance, right, is not just here to say, hey, I'm signing up for something. This is hard work and you need the energy for it. And I'm bringing that energy. Thank you for listening to me this evening.
Thank you. Thank you all at home, and thank you all for being in this room. This is what democracy looked like, and I appreciate all of the candidates who have stepped up. This is important work, noble work, and please remember to vote. We can vote early now in Connecticut, starting on October 20th. Please avail yourself of that, or go obviously in person on November 4th. Thank you very much.